Hello and welcome to Larry Has Opinions. I was tagged in this several months ago, but I finally decided to give it a go. I've linked down below in the description box both Bob the Bookerer and AJ Dunn who tagged me in this, as well as Jennifer Love's book who created the tag in the first place. This is all inspired by 80s music, so I'm definitely not going to sing today, but we'll give it a go anyway. You'll Never Stop Me from Loving You by Sonia. An author whose books you will automatically read, even though some of their books haven't lived up to your expectations. I've mentioned Kazushi Guro several times before in this channel, but that's definitely the perfect answer for this sort of question, because he's an author that I think I would definitely read if he puts out something else in the near future. I love his prose and the way he tells stories, and I absolutely loved some of his backlists like Never Let Me Go and The Remains of the Day, and I do want to read more of his older books. But some of his newer books, as you might know if you follow my channel, like The Buried Giant and Clara and the Sun, I didn't particularly like. But nevertheless, I'm pretty sure that if he publishes anything else, I'm still going to read it. So, You Spin Me Round by Dead or Alive. A book with so many twists and turns that you get dizzy. I've chosen The Girl on the Train by Paula Hawkins. This book was wildly popular 5 or 6 years ago, I think it was. And it follows this English girl who takes this commuter train every morning, and every day tends to stop at the same place at a signal. So she gets the opportunity to look at the back garden of this couple who tend to have breakfast every morning, something like that. And she just comes up with all these stories in her mind about their lives, and then sort of things escalate from there. And I just found it a very entertaining and very solid thriller with a lot of twists and turns. So I think that was a good reason why it became so popular. There was an adaptation as well, and it's definitely one that I would recommend if you're into that sort of stories. Too Many Broken Hearts by Jason Donovan. A book that broke your heart. I've chosen All the Light We Cannot See by Anthony Doerr. This is a Pulitzer Prize winning book set during the Second World War, where we follow a French girl who's blind and a German young man who's in the army. And their separate stories might or might not intersect at some point. I know this book sort of elicits very different responses. Some people really love it, and some people don't necessarily get on with it or think it's a bit overhyped. And in a way, I'm sort of in the latter camp, as in I quite liked it, but I didn't love it necessarily. That said, it is one of the very few books that at some point during the story really managed to move me. And for that reason, it really deserves its place on this list, because that doesn't happen too often for me. So it's definitely very well written, and I can see why so many people really fall in love with this book. Love in the First Degree by Bananarama. Your favorite fictional couple. Another book that I mentioned before on this channel, but I don't really read a lot of romance, and most of the relationships and fictional couples that I read about don't necessarily leave a lasting impression on me. So it has to be Elliot and Oliver from Call Me By Your Name by Andre Aciman. Another book that doesn't necessarily need a lot of introduction, but it follows this relationship or summer fling or whatever you want to call it between these two guys in the Italian countryside. And I absolutely adored this book, the way it's written, the way it really dissects this relationship and the really uncomfortable places that both of them kind of come from in different ways, and also the depiction of Elio's passion, which is kind of borderline obsession, or possibly even across the line of obsession, which I think is very not typical, but it definitely can be found in a lot of teenagers. Like I can remember the way you would see the world at that age. So I thought it was executed in a really masterful way. So it's one of my all-time favorite books, and there's a good reason for it. I Should Be So Lucky by Kylie Minogue. A book by an Irish author. I'm going to mention an author that is quite popular in Ireland itself, but I don't think he's really widely known outside the country, and that's Russell Carroll Kelly. I've read 2 or 3 of his, but a long time ago, back in the days when I was living in Ireland. And you can kind of tell that this is like a funny book. He's a comedian, and this is his guide to South Dublin. I even still have a physical copy, which is quite unusual for me. But South Dublin is where all the rich and posh Dubliners tend to live. And he's just making fun a lot of these stereotypes that you can see in Irish cities, or more broadly, issues that you can encounter in the daily lives of Irish people or in Irish society more generally, or even the political situation quite often. So I think this might be more enjoyable if you have some exposure to Ireland or know some people there or have spent some time there. But even if you haven't and maybe want to visit at some point, it's definitely a really enjoyable read that, as I said, makes light of some of the more serious issues that you can see in Irish society. Say I'm Your Number One by Princess. Your favorite prize-winning book? There's probably quite a few, but one of my favorite reads from last year was The Promise by Damon Galgut, which won the Booker Prize. And this is all set in South Africa, and it's a family saga that spans several decades. And we follow this drama of the things that affect this family alongside some of the key events in South African recent history. And it all revolves around this promise that is made to a black maid that lives with this white family that we're following. And this promise was to leave a small dwelling within the wider property that this family owns. But this promise is never really fulfilled. And it's a great book. It sounds a bit cliche, but Damon Galgut's writing was so unique and so cinematic almost that really made me fall in love with his style. And I really want to read more by this author, hopefully starting this year as well. The Harder I Try by Brother Beyond, an author you just can't get into. Neil Gaiman. I've read a few of his, and I know it's a lot of people's favorite author, and so many people rave about his books. But American Gods, I struggled to finish. I really did not get on with. And Stardust and The Ocean at the End of the Lane, I kind of liked, but they were okay. Like, they didn't leave a lasting mark on me. So I don't really intend to read any more by him, I'm afraid. Happening All Over Again by Lonnie Gordon. Your favorite series or sequel? I didn't want to mention A Song of Ice and Fire once again, so I picked the Wayward Pines series by Blake Crouch, which I never really see talked about on BookTube, and I think is quite underrated. But this follows this secret agent who has a car accident at the beginning of the story, and he finds himself stuck in this village where everybody's a bit weird and something is clearly off about this town, and he can't seem to be able to leave the town or get in touch with his girlfriend or wife, I can't remember. It's got these kind of small town Twin Peaks-esque vibes that I really loved. And Blake Crouch has this writing style which is very straightforward, very fast-moving, and it has this sci-fi element to it, which if you've read Dark Matter or Recursion, you might be familiar with. And this is very similar in terms of style, but a bit of a different story that I actually enjoyed more than his more famous books. Toy Boy by Sinita. Your favorite poet or poems? I don't really read any poetry. It doesn't really do anything for me. I'm probably too dumb to appreciate poetry. So I'm afraid I don't really have an answer for this. Together Forever by Rick Astley. The book that has been on your TBR the longest. And for this one, I've looked at my Goodreads account and looked at the oldest books that I added to my want to read list that I still want to read. And they were both added on the same day in the summer of 2015, so almost 7 years ago. And they are The Way of Kings by Brandon Sanderson and Assassin's Apprentice by Robin Hobb. I don't know when I'll get around to reading this. Quite possibly Way of Kings I might read whenever book 5 is announced, which is the last one. I don't want to start unfinished series. And Robin Hobb I've been wanting to read for years, as this proves, but again, I don't know when, but at some point I'm sure I'll give it a go. Okay, I'm going to tag 2 other channels to do the same tag. If you don't know them already, go check them out because they're both amazing channels. One is Cersei's Booked and the other one is Out of This World Reader. I hope you guys like this video. Please give me a thumbs up. Join our Discord if you want to discuss any of these books or anything else with our community. The link is in the description box, and I'll see you the next time.